Of course, I love summer, but I also am a horror girly all year round. I'm about to give you my favorite horror thriller books that I think you should read during the summer. Hello bookish besties, and welcome back to my channel. Like I said, today we're going over some of the best books that I think you should read over the summer, horror and thriller edition. I recently got into horror about like 2 years ago, and now it's probably one of the main genres I read, especially like when it's interwoven into other things. So I like romance with horror, fantasy with horror, basically anything that's like gothic / horror, I will automatically be picking up and trying. Some of these I've talked about before, but I will never stop recommending these books, and some will probably be new recommendations because I just finished reading them. We're gonna start off with Bunny by Mona Awad. You guys know I've talked about this time and time again, and I'll never get over how much I love this book. I want to do a reread, and I still have to read the sequel that's technically a prequel, but for those of you that don't know, Bunny is about Samantha. She's in a graduate fiction writing course, and she's paired with a very small class of only like 4 or 5 other girls, and they are a hive mind, and they call themselves the Bunnies, kind of just act in really strange ways. They wind up including her in their writing group, and things start to get really weird. This is one that I would kind of classify as a horror because there is kind of a little bit of body horror, but it's more of like a psychological horror where you don't really know what's going on until the end, and then even then you still have to like go back and research and try to figure out what happened. It definitely was on some red threads when I finished this, but I love this book. Like I said, if you want something weird and confusing and feels like a fever dream, definitely read this. This is actually one of my first horror books I read, but I don't talk about it too much, even though I should. That's The Troop by Nick Cutter. The Troop is about a group of Boy Scouts that go to this like remote little island, and it's like the Scoutmaster takes the new group of kids there every year, so it's not something new. But this year, a really crazy, like feral, hungry man winds up on the island, and it's kind of like a contagion, like disease horror. There are quite a few trigger warnings in this, things that even like bothered me, so I would definitely look those up. There's like animal harm, there's like harm to kids. Like if you're really sensitive to that, I wouldn't read this. I've heard like other people describe it. I've never read Lord of the Flies, but they said it's kind of like Lord of the Flies because the boys start to like turn on each other. There's bug horror. It's mixed media because there's like research papers, news articles, there's transcripts of other research. So it's kind of cool because we get to see where this contagion is coming from and what it was actually meant for, but it's basically like biological warfare. But I really need to read more from Nick Cutter because this was a really, really well written book. One that I love that gives peak 80s summer vibes is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Grady Hendrix is truly one of my favorite authors. I really love him. As I've said before, he takes an era and sets the scene so well. No matter what era he's writing in, it's perfect. Like this is literally peak 80s summer vibes. Definitely gives the vibes of like an 80s slasher film. Kind of a summer camp, but it's not a summer camp, but that's the kind of atmosphere that is included in this book. This is about high school friends Abby and Gretchen, and they're at Gretchen's like summer home, I think. They go out at night and she like disappears, and then she starts to act really weird. Abby's convinced that she's possessed and nobody's listening to her, so Abby takes it into her own hands to help Gretchen because she's acting really weird and gross things are starting to happen. I just think this was a really fun like possession story, and I don't think I've really read anything else like this. Now, I've never read The Exorcist or seen the movie, so I'm pretty sure that's also probably similar to this because it's possession, but this was literally so good. I read it so fast. Then we have less of a horror and more of a thriller, and that's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I've read almost every book by Holly Jackson, and I really do like her writing. It is probably a little more YA. Obviously, if you're looking for a more adult thriller or adult horror, this is not it. This is our high school girl Pippa, and she is very, very curious. She takes an unsolved murder in their town into her own hands, and she is a very, very brilliant girl. And there is a little bit of romance in here, but I really like the twists and turns, and you kind of like don't know where the story is going, which I really enjoyed. And it had a really good, satisfying ending, which I really enjoy for a thriller. There's also a show, and the show is really good. I really recommend it. I don't think they changed too much in the show. I think they kept it pretty close to the book. I've read this 2 times now. I audiobooked it the first time, which was really fun, and I physically read it the second time before watching the show, and I had just as good of a time with it. Then the last one I have physically with me, we have Homes Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. I don't love this one. I love the look of it. It's like a VHS tape tape that you pull out of the case. I did give it 5 stars when I read it, so I must have been impressed, but it's not one I think about too often. The twist is extremely predictable in this one. I think I guessed it on page like 4, but it was still a very fast-paced read, and this one had more family drama than anything. So it's kind of like you're learning with the characters what happened. Their parents pass away and their parents leave them stuff, and they find these like old videotapes, and they think that their parents like murdered someone or covered up a murder for someone. Then you find out who did it in the end, and it is so good. But a lot of family drama in this one. Definitely a fast-paced thriller. It's very short, but again, I wouldn't say this is like one of my favorite thrillers, but it is really good. Now we're on to some of the books that I either audiobooked or read on my Kindle. We're gonna start off with my most recent read, which was Molka by Monica Kim. Monica Kim is one of my favorite authors. I've talked about The Eyes Are the Best Part literally so many times I can't even count. That is truly like probably my favorite book of all time. If you guys haven't read that one, go read that one. I want to talk about her second novel, Molka. I recently read this one on Kindle because I didn't really enjoy the cover that much. I gave it 4 stars. I literally finished it I think in May or early June. Molka is a hidden camera horror, and I never thought that like that could be scary, but there were so many other elements other than hidden cameras in that. Hidden cameras are like one of the most relevant themes within the book that kind of pushes the plot forward. So we have our main character, and she works in just like a financial office for a company, and this is all happening in Korea. She comes in every day, is very routine oriented. Her sister passed away 5 years ago, and her parents are having a really hard time with it, and now she's starting to see things. I don't want to give away too much, but she starts to see things. And then we have our other main character. He works in the same department, but he works for like the IT section, and he's the one that places the hidden cameras throughout the office and throughout like the women's bathrooms. Like in his perspective, he knows what kinds of underwear the girls wear and like all these really horrifying things about them. So not only is this story about like invading women's privacy and men like thinking it's okay because they have power, it's about how men believe they have power just because they're men, and that they can like manipulate women and think they can get away with it by just lying. In like the author's note, Monica Kim said it's a lot about, you know, women having their privacy taken away without their knowledge, and men literally not caring, and then women going and taking back their power and getting their revenge. This was a really good book. I really enjoyed it. It was definitely fast-paced. It was definitely gross at some points, just because I work in a corporate office, and like if someone ever, like if we ever found out someone had cameras in the bathrooms, like that's such a scary thing to think about. The fact that Korea had these Molka scandals and that their government wasn't doing anything about it at the time is horrifying, because it's obviously like women are being filmed without their permission, and it's in like really vulnerable scenarios, so it's just horrible. But I really like the social commentary in it. Monica Kim writes the best women revenge stories, and even though the ending was really shocking and sad, I really did enjoy like the final ending. But that's all I'm gonna say. Definitely read this book. It's so amazing. I then audiobooked Tradwife by Saratoga Schaefer. I'd been seeing this one because it came out in paperback, and then I wasn't sure, and I saw that I had it on Hoopla, so I decided to audiobook it because I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. And oh, it was pretty good. It was probably one of the most wild books I've listened to. It's giving what everyone's saying, like kind of like Yesteryear, but like a horror. This woman was like a crazy scientist researcher, and something happened where she didn't want to be doing that anymore, and she became a tradwife, even though she doesn't believe in those values. But she became a tradwife influencer, and that's how she's making all of her money. And she marries this guy that like controls what she wears, controls what she eats, like tells her that she shouldn't be working out to gain muscle, all of these really controlling things. So there's a lot of social commentary on social media and how she's watching this influencer and wants to be her and is obsessed with her, and like her day is only good if this influencer interacts with her. It's kind of showing the reality of social media, which I really enjoyed. So our main character, basically something weird is going on their property, and she wishes to have a baby, and she starts to kind of see things and interact with supernatural things, and it gets crazy from there. There's like a bit of crazy like romance thrown in there. There's a ton of body horror and a ton of like different horror elements that all like intermingle to make this crazy story. I normally, when I'm audiobooking, I'll like write notes so that I like actually remember the story. One of the quotes that I really like is, maybe I don't want to raise a traditional wife, maybe I want to raise a feral woman. And I really just love that it was symbolic for a woman that was controlled by both her father and her husband, but she was breaking those traditional views and raising like a really strong girl. girl. And I think it was also really symbolic of like what a child does to a mother in like the way some people see it is like a child like takes the mother's entire body, takes over their entire life. So I really liked just like all of the symbolism in that. And again, really cool ghost horror. One I've talked about before that I really love is When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. Also audiobooked this one. We're following a girl who works at like a rundown diner and she's having a really bad day and she gets stuck with a needle in like the diner bathroom, and it looked like a drug addict was in there before, so she's freaking out that she's gonna get some kind of disease. So she like rushes home. She's not thinking at all. So she comes home and she finds like a little boy in the bushes behind her house and a guy that's like naked and screaming and freaking out to all the neighbors. And so this boy says that that's his dad and that he's running away from him because he's a scary monster. And then everything kind of unfolds from there. She's trying to keep this kid away from his dad. You start to learn things about the kid. His like superpower is he can basically take whatever he finds frightening and it becomes real. So if he's scared of something, it becomes real. I thought that was such a cool premise, something that's so unique and I've never seen done before. If you want a pretty decent found footage book, definitely check out episode 13 by Craig DeLuey. I didn't hate this one. I really liked it because the audiobook was fully voice acted. There was like sound effects and really cool stuff going on. It kind of has that like paranormal cop out at the end. It started off being supernatural and paranormal, so I guess it's not technically cop out. I just didn't love the way it ended. I thought it was a little strange. This one is kind of like found footage. They're a group of friends that I think do a TV show or like haunted places. From them doing this, it's very, very weird, but I really enjoyed it. Again, subpar ending, but I did still give it a 3.5, so it was definitely a decent book. I will quickly bring this one up because it's technically not horror, but it kind of is. It's technically like a gothic horror, but it's not like scary horror. It's more like horror of like the unknown. And I've talked about it before, so that's Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. This is also one of my favorite books of all time. Southern gothic to the max with witches, but like take it and make it like a 70s Stevie Nicks witch, kind of reminiscent of like American Horror Story witches, very naturalistic, like witches that live in the woods and dance naked under the moon and like all of that kind of stuff. And that's like one of my favorite depictions of witches. We have Wayward girl houses, so that's where families would send unwed pregnant girls to go so they could have their babies, give them up for adoption, and come back and act like nothing happened. So we have a house full of pregnant teenage girls. The lady of the house gives them different names, so they come in not knowing each other's names so they can't find each other afterwards. So we have a group of 4 girls that kind of like make this friend group that's inseparable, and a library bus comes and the woman who runs it is a witch and she gives the girls a book on witchcraft. The more you learn, the more the book has. So like the book's empty at first and then they start learning and it starts filling in and they start messing with his witchcraft and things go terribly wrong, and it is such a cool book. Another one is Where He Can't Find You by Darcy Coates. This one is just gross. It's kind of a thriller, but then it turns into a horror. This town that like the kids know not to go out at night because there's something that will take them, and I think it's like the red string killer. There's something to do with red string, and so they just know not to be out like late at night. But the main character, her sister, goes missing. They go crazy looking for this girl. They think it's the guy down the street, but then they start learning more information and it's kind of winds up being like a folklore tale, and there winds up being like a creepy monster involved. So it's very twisty. It's not like a typical thriller where it winds up just being like a random person that's taking kids, but it's really well done. More body horror with a really creepy monster in this one. I really liked it. I think I would definitely read it again physically. Another really fun one by Grady Hendrix is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. This is a really interesting take on vampires, and it kind of takes like the 90s suburban mom and makes her fight Dracula. It's a bunch of suburban moms getting together. There's someone or something that's taking children. The one mom is convinced that the new neighbor is a vampire because he only comes out at night, and she tries to convince the rest of the book club, and then when she does, the book club goes crazy, and it is so good. It was so much fun. Again, a really weird, gross take on a vampire, but so much fun to read. I definitely recommend this one, especially if you want like a different kind of vampire story. This one's really fun and I don't think people talk about it enough. It's This Delicious Death by Kayla Cottingham. This one is, there was like a pathogen that converted people into kind of like living zombies where all they want to do is eat human meat. So there was like a company that made like synthetic human organs that people eat. So like synthetic meat, synthetic human organs. Unfortunately, there's like a new like variant or something that happens to people where they go completely crazy and turn into like a wild monster and wind up eating like actual people. So these friends are at a music festival dealing with like this outbreak, which it was so crazy. This is a really good zombie book, but again, like a different twist on like your typical zombie. The House in the Pines by Anna Reyes is another one. This one, you're in the point of view of a girl who had like a horrible experience with, I think it was her ex or her friend's ex, where like they're sitting at a table and all of a sudden like this guy just makes her friend like drop dead and he doesn't touch her. And she's watching on the news that it happened again and she sees him again and she winds up like going back to her hometown and trying to like catch him and figure out what he's doing. This one is like just a wild ride because it kind of feels like you're in a fever dream. You don't know what's actually happening and there's some crazy level of hypnotism that happens in this book. It was just really fun to listen to. Definitely like a psychological thriller. Then we have The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. I audiobook this one as well. This one is so confusing. I'm just gonna read you the synopsis and try to explain it as best as I can, but it was so good. This is a story of a serial killer, a stolen child, revenge, death, an ordinary house at the end of an ordinary street. All these things are true, and yet they're all lies. You think you know what's inside the last house on Needless Street. You think you've read this story before. That's where you're wrong. In the dark forest at the end of Needless Street lies something buried, but it's not what you think. There's this man that lives in the last house on Needless Street, and you think that he's taken a girl. So you think it's his point of view, the girl's point of view that was captured, and then a cat that can talk. The entire thing, you just have to accept that you're confused and lost the entire time and take it for what it is. And then the reveal in this one is crazy. I have never been so led astray before. It was literally insane. Like when you finish this book, you're gonna be like, oh my god, what did I just read? Like it was phenomenal. The ending, so good. Those are all the thriller and horror books I recommend you guys read over the summer. These were truly amazing, whether you read them physically, Kindle, or audiobook. A lot of them are gory and horrifying, but some are just twisty and mentally horrifying. Let me know down in the comments if you guys have read any of these, and please give me more recommendations for summer horror books. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for future content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and okay, love you, bye!